Congressman Jamaal Bowman pulled the fire alarm in the Cannon building at the Capitol in order to stop Republicans from voting on a stopgap continuing resolution to avoid the government shutdown. Of course, Jamaal Bowman is a Democrat. A Republican wouldn't do this. A Democrat would do this. And the stages of his denial are almost funny if it weren't for the fact that the Republicans are going to let him get away with this. So what I want to talk about tonight is I want to talk about exactly what he did and what Republicans ought to do and what it means if Republicans don't do anything to hold him accountable. So first of all, I want to show this photo. This is the photograph that the Capitol Police released that shows Congressman Jamaal Bowman. You can see him pulling the fire alarm. We all know what a fire alarm looks like, right? Everyone over the age of 7 knows what a fire alarm looks like. Plus, when you walk up to a fire alarm, it says fire alarm splashed all over it. It usually even tells you if you pull this, the alarm will ring. If you open the door, the buzzer will sound. No one is so stupid that they don't know what a fire alarm is, except apparently Congressman Jamaal Bowman. He's claiming that he didn't realize what this was. So before we get into showing you, see those signs standing around him? See the signs on the door and the sign right there, kind of behind him to his left at the bottom right corner of the picture? Those are signs that say exactly what the fire alarm will do if you pull it. And we're going to read those signs in just a second. But I would just like to put this thought out there for any Republican members of Congress who are listening. What Jamaal Bowman did here is not only a crime, it actually is a crime in Washington, D.C. to pull a fire alarm as a hoax or to do a false alarm. But I assume that this qualifies as obstruction of an official proceeding because the reason Jamaal Bowman pulled this fire alarm was to prevent the Republicans from passing this continuing resolution because it did not include funding for Ukraine, which is what the Democrats wanted. Now, this continuing resolution, you can argue that it's terrible. It probably is. It only funds the government through November 17th. So it's a couple more weeks and we're going to be having the same fight again. I think that Matt Gaetz is going to try to get rid of Speaker McCarthy in the interim, which might not be a bad thing. Just depends on the coalition Matt Gaetz has behind him. Again, we can talk about that a little bit later. But let's just focus on this one single action that Jamaal Bowman took part in. This is obstruction of an official proceeding because the only reason that you would do this is to prevent the vote in Congress, which is the official proceeding of the United States government. So I assume, based on what we've been told by the left and by the Department of Justice for the past 2.5 years now, Jamaal Bowman should be on his way to prison. He should be held in pretrial detention, probably in solitary confinement, and then sentenced to decades in prison, right? Because if you obstruct an official proceeding, if you try to stop Congress from doing what they're there to do, then you are a threat to our democracy. You amount to an insurrectionist. This is what I've been told. So I'm just sitting here waiting for Republicans to walk Jamaal Bowman out of Congress in handcuffs, for the Capitol Police to arrest him, for the FBI to SWAT his house at the crack of dawn, for him to be thrown into a cell so narrow that you can barely sit down and lay down in it, to have his due process completely violated, unless Republicans are only willing for this to happen to our own, unless we're not willing to hold the standard of justice, quote unquote justice, that the Democrats have for us to Democrats who commit acts.